What does online only, if it's online only, coverage look like? How can one cover a major metropolitan area of 4 million people with, you're hiring 50 people altogether, how many of those will be active journalists in one form or another?
35, 40. 35 or 40.
35 or 40 people. What are you building? What will you cover?
Yeah. And I think we're starting with the concept that you can't be all things to all people anymore, and that the media landscape is so fragmented now that you have to assume that the days of sort of, you know, winner-take-all competition in cities is pretty much over. And so as opposed to going out and hiring hundreds of reporters and suggesting we're going to go compete with the Post or with other local television stations or with WTOP, go compete with them on every beat, is just unrealistic financially. It's unrealistic in a lot of ways. So the reason that this seemed to make sense to me is that if you look at the news organizations that cover Washington, D.C. as a city where people live, pretty much every one of them is attached to another property that really gets the lion's share of the attention at the company, whether it's local newspapers, local TV, local radio. The radio, the TV, the newspaper, the magazine, that's really in almost all cases getting most of the attention. So if you could start anew from scratch basically on the website of things and build from there, what could you build that would be extremely different than what you could build if you were trying to do it at one of those organizations? Because newspapers specifically have really obviously taken, as you can see from some of Tom's slides, taken a huge hit in the last 5, 6 years on the business side. And you know, they have generally provided a significant amount of local journalism. And I think having been at WashingtonPost.com for 4 or 5 years, you see the struggle every day between trying desperately to figure out how to preserve the lion's share of the business while trying to water and grow this emerging part of the business. And so after having left there, I thought, boy, there just seems like there's such opportunity for, you know, a website operating on web time, and something that, as you know, we like to say back at WashingtonPost.com, is not just on the web, but of the web. And so it comes with that, all the DNA you know, that comes with that particular medium. And so what that means is we're going to have beats we're going to go chase, but it's going to be a limited number of beats, and we're going to go aggressively after a limited number of beats where we think there's opportunity, where something is either not being covered particularly well or can be covered differently. And so we're not going to be at every zoning board meeting in the region. We're not going to be at every high school football game. We're going to pick our spots. But the way that we feel like we can do a pretty comprehensive report that way is we're also going to not act as if we're sort of alone in this ecosystem. There are hundreds of really good local websites and local news sites in this region, bloggers, like I said, other news sites that we're going to work closely with, in fact, partner with. Because most of you who live in neighborhoods in this, you know, who live here in neighborhoods have local sites that you go to get really useful, very targeted information about your communities. We're not going to be able to provide really targeted information about Great Falls, Virginia, and Oxon Hill, Maryland, and Woodbridge, Virginia, you know, Shaw. We're going to have to depend on sites that are already doing really good work there. So we're going to partner with local bloggers. We're going to aggregate very aggressively, which is to do what was once considered sort of outrageous in the news space, which is actually point to competitors off of our homepage. It's obviously less outrageous now. But if the Washington Post, who many people view as, you know, who are going after in this new operation, which is not really the case, but makes for good copy. You know, if they publish a great story about something going on in DC government, we would be letting our readers down to not point to that, not act like there's terrific journalism being committed all over the city today, and the only stuff that matters is the stuff we produce. So we'll be very aggressive there. We'll be very aggressive on mobile, and we will push really hard at throwing away what I think is one of the sort of wrong-headed terms that's been thrown around a lot the last couple of years, which is platform agnostic journalism. It's not platform agnostic. You have a different experience on a mobile phone and on a web browser and on an iPhone and on television, and we're going to try to provide journalism that fits the platform and not just say one size fits all. So we're going to try to do things very differently, and to echo Tina's point, we're looking at everything differently down to when site navigation is one we just talked about the other day. You know, we're going to cover things very differently. So I think there's plenty of room, and I think you know, you'll see hopefully in a couple of months how we're going to try to create this, what I hope will be a very different thing.